Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Chris Fowler back with part 3 of the Adjuster series to answer any questions about adjusting that newcomers may have. And with me today, again, is David James with CNC and in charge of training. And we've got a few questions that we've sort of talked about, and we're just going to jump right into it. So one of the questions that we receive a lot is, or that we see is, what's the difference between a daily and a CAD adjuster, or which one is better?
That's a good question. It really, especially coming into it new and not having any experience. So, daily adjusters, like we mentioned before in the previous episode, a lot of folks get into this business, into this industry, in the CAD side. You know, there's a big event.
Right.
They come in and start working and get that experience. But, you know, on the daily side, those are there's just as much work there, and what that means to differentiate between the two is the daily side is just everyday claims, everyday things that happen. There doesn't have to be a huge event. Things like the supply line off of the washing machine or the dishwasher popping off, and you know, I'll use a personal experience for an example. So I guess it was maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, my wife and I bought our house. We've been there for a year, 2 years, and watching Monday Night Football on the couch. I'll never forget it. And all of a sudden heard this loud pop towards the front of the house. And it was like, what is that? And I was hissing. I was like, I ran up there, ran into the bathroom, and the supply line on the bottom of the toilet had popped off, and it was just spewing everywhere. So run in there, turn the valve off, and clean everything up. Thank God we were home, because if you think about it, most folks are, you know, some folks are not home. We're here at work.
Right.
And what if it happened now? By the time I get home, there's probably water pouring out the front door, you know, coming out. So those are things that happen every day, daily claims.
Okay.
You know, folks file claims, there's damage there.
Fires, kitchen fires, small kitchen fire maybe.
That's right. That's
Things
right.
like that.
Yeah, there's, you know, it happens, grease fires, get out of control, and you know, for whatever reason, the severity of it obviously depends on the situation, but you've got that, and then, you know, overflow. You've got, you know, 4-year-old that likes to stuff things in the toilet that don't go there, or hide them, and, you know, on accident, you know, things happen or whatever. So just different situations like that.
Okay.
Of course, the CAT side, you've got big events, hurricanes, wildfires, tornadoes. The recent events, unfortunately, you know, this happened here within the last week, couple of days. Those are the differences between the daily and the CAT. There's just as much work on either side, really, if you ask me.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's
I know you asked me which is better. I don't really. I'm not going to say that one's better than the other. I will say that, of course, you know, as far as the CAT side goes, you know, we work the claims. We want to work them as quick as possible, getting it right, being efficient, and doing everything right. Of course, once those claims go away, there may not be any more work. You know,
but there's always daily claims.
That's right.
There's always daily claims.
It's happening. There's things happening all the time.
But it's really, is it possible to do both at the same time?
That's a good question. Starting out, I wouldn't recommend it. But I really wouldn't recommend it at all. But unless you're just a, you know, Superman or a monster at it, it's just hard. I don't know. Some folks may be able to manage it. Some folks, you know, can. It's just a matter of preference. But you know, you don't want to put too much on your plate, because we ultimately want to take care of the customer.
Yeah, and that's the thing with catastrophes, is that you may get 50 or 100 claims. And if you have a daily claim that's in a different state, then it's very difficult to get back and handle that. And on the flip side of that as well, with daily claims, you probably don't get 50 or 100 all at one time.
No, so, you know, if you think about it, you may make more money in a shorter period of time with CAT work. But if you're just doing daily claims, you're doing a little by little here and there, it really evens out or works out to be the same from, overall.
So you can be
standpoint.
a catastrophe adjuster as long as you are not handling daily claims, maybe, or finish your daily claims, go work the catastrophe, come back home, and get back into the daily routine. Is that an option?
Anything's possible.
Okay.
It's possible as long as you manage it right. I'm not going to say I suggest it or don't suggest it, but if you can take care of everybody and handle your own business and work your claims and do the right thing and stay on top of it, anything's possible.
So you could have 100 tornado claims, which would be roofs and wind damage, and then you come home and you might have a fire and then a lightning strike and a fence that blows down, possibly. Could you still have hail? I guess you would. You could still have a hail claim, even if it's not necessarily a catastrophe. It could be just a daily claim.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. Yep.
Okay.
It's possible.
Okay. So let's move into let's talk about roofs. I'm a little bit older, and the last time I got on a roof, I said I'm getting too old for this stuff, and I said, "Gosh, now I sound like my father." So what someone my age or older or just doesn't want to get on roofs? Is there any alternative to do that? Is that going to limit a new adjuster if they don't want to get on a roof or can't get on a roof?
This is a good question. There are alternatives. I don't think there's a one way. If you can get on the roof, to me, that's going to be the best way to determine the damage and then take a look at it and get a real feel for it. Having said that, there's technology out there that's come a long way or come along, and some folks really during catastrophic events, there was so much damage and so much going on to where accessibility was an issue, to where drones were used, and they would fly the drones over the roof.
And that's acceptable? And it can measure the roof and take pictures of the damage?
It can take pictures. I don't know about measuring the roof, unless there's something out there that I don't know about from a drone standpoint.
Well, hover, right?
Yeah.
Or some of these other
As far as that,
services.
I was sorry. I apologize. I was talking about me just getting out of the truck and flying the drone over the roof.
Oh, okay. You flying the drone. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
it
that
won't
makes
take
sense.
measurements, but you can look at the roof. But there are other avenues like hover, like you mentioned. I've actually used hover on my home just for measurements, and it's a great tool. Eagle View, satellite view. Those measure your roof. They measure the elevations on the home without getting on it. It's the technology has come quite a ways and given more options if there's an issue there. But again, getting on the roof is a huge benefit because you're on there and you can see it up close and personal and get the details. But if there are some obstacles in your way, those few there are some options to look at.
A drone. Interesting.
You can get up there and like I said, and
it'll take pictures, and the insurance company is okay with drone photos and measurements where you didn't even get up there. Well, why don't they just do it? Do it themselves.
All of them do it. Yeah, I'm not going to say that the insurance companies are okay with it. I think it's going to go off of the information that you can present. Is it, is it realistic? Is it just like question? It's not questionable, or is it questionable? It's like I don't really know.
I have a really good option, and this is what my dad did. He took my brother and I, when I was in high school, he took us to Wichita, Kansas, and said, get on that roof, measure that roof, photograph that roof, and I'll write the estimate. Which leads me into the next question is, would you recommend bringing your family with you when you're doing these insurance claims?
I'm not going to say yes or no. To me, that's a personal preference. I will say, from my standpoint, I like to go out and take care of business, I guess, for lack of better terms, and just I want to stay focused. I have a 3.5, 4-year-old.
That would make it difficult.
Yeah, I don't know that.
That would make it difficult.
I couldn't concentrate. I wouldn't do that. To him, it wouldn't be fair to him. Of course, not fair to me or the customer to have that distraction. You know, it goes back to if you think you're able to manage it. I wouldn't suggest it at first. Maybe once you get more experienced and established, you have a routine and you have the buy-in from everyone that goes out. But I wouldn't. I personally wouldn't do it. Having said that, I do know, have heard stories of actually couples.
Yeah, couples
going out, and
children are grown or in college, and maybe they're I see that as well.
They're kind of independent, or they can manage it, and they want to learn.
Right.
You know, you can go along, and of course you want to stay in compliant, but you know, just get the experience and learn what they can. There was years back. There's a story of different. You hear about different couples going out. There was one couple that the guy, he was the adjuster, and his wife stayed in the car, and he would do the inspection. And by the time he got through with the inspection, you know, she would help him with the paperwork and whatever assistance he may need or the other one needed. They would work together as a team. They'd call in,
make the phone calls.
It's a good point. Call him for the next appointment. Hey, we're going to be wrapped up here in 20, 30 minutes. Well, maybe 15 minutes earlier. Does that work for you? So, again, I really think it's not across the board. It really depends on each individual and their situation.
I think that would be a good option if you had the ability with someone to help you make the phone calls and schedule, and you can double your production.
Right. Right. As long as you're not discussing anything or getting into a licensing issue.
Right.
You've got somebody to help you. You know, if that works out that way.
Yeah, definitely. That's what my dad did. Craig and I did most of the work.
And look at you now. Look what you learned. Look where you're at.
And it's too hot to get on the roof today. Let's just go have lunch instead. No, we got to get on these roofs.
Right. You couldn't talk him out of it. Huh?
You know, we ran into a little issue, though, with Craig and I on a roof before, where he said that you measure it this way, and I said you measure it that way. And we kind of got into an argument, and he got down and took the ladder and said he was walking home. So that can happen, too. There can be some head-butting.
Well, just take your own ladder in the next one then.
Well, that's another good segue into the next question is with all the laptops and iPads and telephones and devices, what do you bring? What's something that really helps you on an inspection? You know, I hear about laser tapes and even 3D cameras that can take pictures and do things. So what do you give us some insight?
You got to have all the tools to do the job, of course.
Which is what? What are all the tools?
You want to have your computer is going to.
But you won't take that on the inspection necessarily, or would you?
It's an option.
Okay.
It's an option. Like I said,
have it in the car.
The technology we have nowadays available, you can actually do an inspection with a tablet through the software, depending on the software that you're using. But you can go in and really, if you have the capability, the newer products, they have the capability of just take a picture of the room and it does the measurements for that wall, for this wall, for this wall, and this wall. You're just taking a picture of it based on the software. And the laptops, I've heard, what brand do I need or what kind of laptop do I need? And it's just a personal preference. I've heard that Acers are good. Lenovo's seem to work well. You know, if you have a Mac, folks use the MacBook. If you do and you're running Xactimate, you have to partition it to be able to run that particular software from the estimating standpoint. If I'm kind of old fashioned and trying to get into the technology side, I like a good old tape measure, but you can have the laser measures as well, moisture meters. You know, if you're working that, depending on what's going on with the claim, you want to have that as well. They call it. They have a even if you want to get really. I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but you have like a tool belt. You can have all your tools on, so you're not, or a book bag. Have everything with you. Be organized. Somewhat organized. Look like you know what you're doing at least, and be prepared for that before you go out there and say, I need this or whatever. If you find that you need something, make a note of it so you go get it the next before the the next one that you go on. So
Yeah, I think that I recall using my iPad, and it was very difficult. It was bulky, but that's what I used to take photos because of the way that we were doing our first reporting when we were doing flood inspections. I stayed away from the laser tape for a long time, but then I would measure the room, or I would use the tape, use the laser tape, and then say it can't be right and measure the room, and it was accurate. So I got to the point where I do trust the laser, but I'll still have my regular tape. I'll still have my 100-foot tape if I get a really large building. I always had a big, bulky camera because I like really good photos. I've never used, after I took the initial photos on my iPad, then I would use a large camera, download those photos. It was a process. I had a camera that was always here banging back and forth, the iPad that's tucked under here, my notepad here, which when you're on a hot day, then you're sweating and it's getting full of, the ink's running. So,
right. You got to use that invisible ink.
But that's what I use, and you know, I was just curious. Yeah, from time to time, I would bring my laptop and try to at least work part of the claim before I went to the next claim for the inspection and just stay ahead. I always had extra batteries in the days with 35 millimeter. I always had extra 35 millimeter. Now you can probably use your phone.
Yeah, you can use your phone. Of course, you said the tablets, laptops. Again, with the software, a lot of that is allowing you to really accept the claim when you get on site or before site, and then do the inspection and write the estimate there on site.
So it's kind of necessary. Kind of necessary.
Lots of opportunity and lots of options there, whichever you prefer. But kind of sound like me. You know, I would always double check myself with the tape and then the electronic piece just to make sure it don't seem actually is. Yeah. Yeah. But you want to make sure it's charged all the time, like you said. Keep your batteries in there. But if not, you know, fully charged, get a device that you don't have to have the most powerful device. You know, something in the mid range as far as processors go, and you want to have the memory, but you want to stay charged. You don't want to run out of power in the middle of doing inspection. That's just as important, if not more important, than the performance.
It seems like you would need a very large memory and fast processing, so you wouldn't want to use a computer from 10 years ago. You would want to get a good, decent, maybe even talk to the IT team, and ask them, you know, what do I need? Because I know that Xactimate takes up a lot of space, and Xactimate. So we'll move into that next. That Xactimate is the estimating program that we use. What companies require Xactimate? Does everybody use Xactimate? Are there other estimating softwares? How much does Xactimate cost? Once I learn it and get trained, is there a monthly fee? Tell us about the adjusting software.
Yeah. Well, Xactimate's the gold standard for the industry. A lot of companies use it. I'm not going to say everyone does, but most of them do. And, you know, it's a powerful software, like you mentioned earlier. It really is. You can do a lot of things with it. It does require a lot of memory, a lot of you know, if you're on your machine, if you're going to do that, make sure that you shut everything down and just keep that open, because it requires a lot of space.
Okay.
You know, there's other software programs out there. You've got Symbility, SimSol. Xactimate, again, is really the gold standard for the industry. A lot of people use that. And
most use Xactimate.
And, you know, as far as it's not free, so you got to pay to use it.
How much is it?
The pricing, it really depends on how you want to use it. You can get a single interface, or you can get multiple. The Xactimate Professional it gives you the online, the desktop, and the mobile.
What would I need?
Access.
As a new adjuster, what would I need? Just the basic. I'm just going to be a CAD adjuster. I'm going for 2 months. That's all that I need. Is there an annual subscription, or can I just get pay per claim or month to month? How does that work?
Yeah, well, good question. The Xactimate gives you a demo version free for 30 days. I wouldn't recommend that if you're out there doing work. Maybe I would recommend it prior to accepting any type of deployment.
Get the demo and learn, get familiar.
Yeah, but you have to pay a monthly, and I don't have the exact dollar amount. I think it's around $400 a month, maybe.
Wow.
But it depends on what your subscription is to them and what you want from it.
Okay.
If you get the single, channel, you don't want the mobile or the desktop or the online, vice versa, whichever one you choose. Pricing is going to depend on that.
Okay.
But I would out there Xactimate, they will give you a demo version for 30 days to try it out, and I highly recommend that.
Okay.
If this is what you're wanting to get into.
Okay.
To learn about it.
Where does everybody stay when there's a catastrophic event? Because obviously, there could be hotels not available, torn down, and if policyholders have lost their homes, they're going to want to get access. So everybody's coming in. What do you do? That's
a good question, and it really depends on the event. I'll tell you, in California, those folks, when wildfires, depending on the situation, but you get into communities or areas where their whole house is gone.
Mm-hmm.
They gotta have like you said, they've got to have a place to stay, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're in the hotels, extended stays,
mm-hmm.
and wherever other places that offer the short-term stay. So you may find yourself, believe it or not, staying in your vehicle.
Yeah.
Overnight.
Yeah.
Or for however long. You may be an hour, 2 hours, 6, 8 hours away. It depends on the availability
mm-hmm.
and the how the event is going, and just with hurricanes, you're going to have to stay on the outer lying areas possibly.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard of and actually experienced driving a couple of hours away, staying a couple of hours
mm-hmm.
away from the lost location,
right.
driving to it. So it really depends on, the situation in hand, because I can't tell you that, a catastrophe or an event in California, you're going to, it's going to be the same situation as far as living situation as it is in Minnesota or in
mm-hmm.
Tennessee. Something happens. So
mm-hmm.
just be prepared for anything, really.
Yeah, many of the storms that I've worked would be a 2-hour drive going in and then 2 hours coming back, and then there's all of the traffic because everybody's trying to do the same thing, get to the area. You have your first responders, adjusters, contractors, and all of these resources are being taken up as far as lodging.
Right.
So hotels, plus the hotels can get expensive.
You can.
And then some people, like you said, have stayed in their vehicles until they could some have purchased RVs, mm-hmm. campers, but still those camping grounds may not be readily available or easily available, and you still have to have a vehicle. You can't necessarily drive your camper up to the lost location.
No,
so
you don't want to do that.
So your options are really a hotel, your car, or an RV or camper.
Right. And when you mention that, when you say that, you want to also explain that to the policyholder and the insured too.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you're sympathetic and empathizing with them, but you also want to explain that I'm 2 hours away. There's nowhere else to stay, so I'm just letting you know that this is why I can be there at this time. Or
just get up earlier. Get up at 3 and
just
be here
right?
at the crack of dawn. Be here at sunrise. Which, that's what Hurricane Katrina. That's what I did. Fortunately, my home is in Mobile, so I was able to stay here. There was no place to stay in Mississippi, anywhere in New Orleans, and I would, get up at 5 a.m. and I'd go pick up people's mail for them that were having mail delivered to Mobile. I'd take it to them in Biloxi or wherever, and here's your mail, and let's do the claim now, and then fight the traffic going home, and I would call Craig and be like, "Are you stuck in this traffic too?" Yep. 5 a.m. Here we are on the bridge, stuck in the traffic.
Wow, you would gift their mail. That's world-class experience right there as far as customer service goes. That's
for sure.
There needs to there needs to be more of that.
Yeah. So sometimes these claims get to a point where you've seen the claim, you've done your job, everything's been inspected, and the policyholder says, "I disagree. I don't want to settle. I'm not going to fight," and then it possibly goes into litigation. What are some alternative dispute resolutions that are available in order to either not have a lawsuit, or then what happens if it does go to a lawsuit? Does that drag me into it? Do I handle the claim from there with the lawyer?
Well, look at your alternatives first. You don't want to,
Okay. What are those?
For you and for everyone involved, we want to try to settle the claim in a reasonable manner, for whatever it's going to take to make the customer whole again. And just talk it out with the homeowner and the contractor. Where are you? When we would settle the claim initially, explain the claims process to the policyholder and tell them this is an estimate for what we can see that's covered, and it's an estimate. Okay, we're going to settle the claim, and you could get pushback and say, well, that's not enough money. And say, well, how do you know?
Oh, what about you're not paying for this rot? And you say, as the adjuster, rot's not covered, and they say, well, I think that it is, and I'm getting my lawyer.
Okay.
So then what?
Well, do your best to explain that it's not covered. Still understand that they have a difference of opinion, or they don't agree with you, and that's fine. That's okay. And, if they want to hire an attorney, you need their letter of representation of who they're being represented by. And,
okay.
For me, we would always have our legal department involved.
Okay.
And make sure that, we're handling everything the way it's supposed to legally, and have attorneys talk with it, because you don't want to talk to the attorney or to the customer.
Give legal advice.
No, and you don't.
Nope.
You don't want to say, you do this or that if you don't know
I'm just
that
an
you're
adjuster.
supposed to. That's right.
Right.
That's right. I'm sticking to the policy. This is what I can see. This is what's covered. This is what's not covered by the policy. And do your best to explain that. And if it's still not accepted, then they have that option. Everyone has that option to go the legal route. We just need to know who you're being represented by, so we can turn it over to the.
There are a couple of other options as well that are written into the policies. There's mediation,
appraisal,
where there's two mediators. So the policyholder says they want to go to mediation. The insurance company hires a mediator, a neutral mediator. The policyholder hires a mediator, and then there is, well, I say mediator, then there's an actual mediator that hears both sides of the case and then tries to negotiate it out. And a lot of times that can get resolved because the insurance company maybe realizes the potential of it going to lawsuit, so they may pay a little extra, or we're gonna do this. But there's always a settlement where, okay, we're done. This is it. You can't come back and file a claim anymore.
Right.
And appraisal, you're familiar with appraisal, which is very similar but binding.
Right. And you get somebody, like you said, an uninterested third party to hear both sides of it, and you just try to work out the differences and come to an agreement to where everyone can move on. The goal is to get the policyholder back to where they were, and if there's some differences, let's talk about them and iron them out so we can finalize it, and you can move on with your life pretty much and put everything back together. With
mediation, it's not binding. So if the parties don't agree, then it goes further, a step further. With appraisal, once appraisal is enforced, whatever, if two parties agree that that's what the loss amount is, then it's binding. It's over. That's the end of it. I have handled some appraisals and said absolutely no, and the other two agree, and it is what it is.
Right.
So,
right.
But those are really the options.
Hopefully those are few and far between. Right?
Not my favorite thing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about commercial and residential buildings. What's the difference? Do I need to learn about, will I be handling commercial buildings? Is there anything significantly different?
There are. They have a lot of similarities and differences. So when you go into a commercial versus residential, or you look at both of them, they're subject to have the same type of material or building materials in it, drywall. Some may have metal studs, of course, wood studs and so forth, carpet, drywall, insulation, the ceiling tiles, and lights and different things. There's a lot of similarities, but commercial, the policies are different. And when you think about outside of the policies, when I say a homeowner's out of a home, the additional living expense coverage just comes into play. If the commercial building or the business is damaged, or they may have business interruption coverage for that.
Okay.
No one's living there, so additional living expenses wouldn't come into play. You know, the residential side of it, you've got contents, the unscheduled personal property in the residential. In the commercial, you're going to have merchandise to where inventory you're going to have to account for. So there are some similarities and differences for all of it. You know, can you get into commercial right off the bat? I'm not going to say you can't. For me, I would, based on my experience, I'd much rather go the residential route first, just to get the experience, learn the claims process overall, and ease into the commercial side of it.
Yeah, the commercial side, the construction is different. The business entities are different. You might be dealing with an LLC, which has a board of directors, which has a property manager, so you're dealing with multiple different people, and they usually, not usually, but a lot of times a larger business will involve you could have lawyers, you could have accountants, because let's just say that the grocery store is damaged and all the stock is damaged. How do you account for 1,000 pounds of apples and what was in stock and inventory? And it gets to be very difficult as far as how to figure the value on that, how to count that.
Right.
And then
they have a ledger or an invoice of where
hopefully
they purchased that.
But it will be a very, very involved claim, not just from the aspect of looking at the building and the different construction and knowing the different techniques involved with commercial property, but the entities and stock. I've handled elevator companies, a funeral home. That was interesting. Lots of McDonald's. Some of the smaller, there's small commercial or small commercial, and then large commercial. So just a 7-Eleven is not too terribly difficult. But a large warehouse that stores, say, well, the Harley-Davidson shop. I handled the Harley-Davidson shop, and that was a difficult claim.
I can imagine, because it's not the same bike in the store, right? You've got potentially up to 20, 30 bikes in the store.
And then salvage, can you salvage them? And Harley-Davidson says that we won't honor a warranty, so then that gets to be a big dispute about, well, what do you do with it? Right. Somebody wants it, so.
Right.
Well,
yeah, the salvage piece of it is huge, too. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think, that pretty much wraps up the questions for today. You got anything to add, or you want to meet up next time and we'll come up with some new questions?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some new questions and just possibly elaborating on some things in the past that we've talked about and coming up. But I think today was good. We touched on a lot of stuff. A lot of aspects of the claim.
All right. Well, we're signing off for today. Thanks for listening in and joining in, ladies and gentlemen. Please email us. I don't know how you're going to email us, but I'm sure that there's going to be a link to somehow contact us and let you know what kind of questions you may have trying to get into becoming an adjuster.